We started out with this most basic exercise. It was taking us 2 years of Danzhong and Tuishou to get to the point where we can do this correctly, where we know what we're doing. And most people learn these exercises and they think, okay, this is the basics, and then you work on to the advanced patterns. But of course, it's not about the patterns, it's about the engagement. So it's the needle in the cotton. It's that Pangjing and Liu. If I'm not engaging your feet, then you don't want to stop me from doing it. So if I'm over here, if I'm trying to push your arm and you're tense, then I can push you to the side by pushing over there, even though you are not there. But if you have Pangjing, you have the needle inside the cotton, then if I try to push you over there, there's no resistance. You just let it go. And you change the point of contact in your mind to that point closer to the center. So you're engaging with Pang. And then and the only way that I can affect your movement is by actually pushing your center. So I find your center again, and you turn. You just turn. And even without the folding, so yeah, if I continue this far and you roll up the arm and you maintain that engagement, now you can attack with your elbow. And if I continue over there, I've just essentially opened the door for you to strike me with your elbow. But if I'm turning and I feel that change happen, if you were to do that, if you were to come with my elbow, if I'm engaging your center, then I neutralize that by simply being connected to your center. Mm-hmm. So there is, essentially I'm trying to push you, but the only way I can push you is by pushing that needle, by pushing the feet. And anything that I can do that would control you, would manipulate me, requires that you have some kind of distal efferent pressure, so that you're pushing with this part of your hand instead of engaging with the ground. So if I am just or a little off center, there's no resistance to it. You roll and change the point of contact so that that happens. And you haven't collapsed yet, right? You've just turned. Your hand is still the same distance from your chest. So I have to find your center, so I go this way, but then just a tiny change on your part, and I miss. So I'm off that line. So I'm trying to push on a center line that has no lateral or distal pressure, meaning there's no size to it, no dimension to it. Your center becomes infinitely thin, infinitely narrow. So any attempt that I make to control your center using distal or efferent power doesn't work. The only way I can connect to your center is to connect from the ground into your center. But if I'm right on your center, that infinitely small thing, then I'm pushing on the end of that needle. And I will impale myself on it. So I try to push and I end up uprooting myself. If I can do the same thing, then it becomes a contest of who has the superior Pangjing, who has the superior connection to the ground, who can get gravity to flow through them into the feet. So that's the key. The other part is that the power is not in the arms, it's in the legs. So we're trying to conserve momentum throughout the whole body, so that when you push me, you're not pushing with your shoulder muscles of the arms, you're pushing with that connection, that alignment connected to your feet. So it's your legs that are issuing the power, bouncing the momentum off the earth and combining it with the mass of the body and translating that momentum into me. And you're doing it in a way when you attack that is the same as when you neutralize. So when you are engaging me, you're engaging me from the center and not applying any distal or lateral pressure. So there's no way for me to resist it, because if I try to resist it, my resistance falls into nothing. And it becomes replaced with this sharp thing pointing right at me. And I try to use force to move it off to the side, and I can't find anything to push against. You make it impossible for me to neutralize. So if you make a fist, and you apply pressure, and you come from the legs there, then I bounce off of it, because you are doing that neutralization. And if I try to push your hand to the side, you let me push you, and you move your point of contact to that point that's closer to the center. So as I move, as I try to push, and laterally, then you are continually just moving your mind to that point that is more pungy. Right? You're the water, if I push this way, the water flows away, but the ocean remains underneath it. I cannot affect the center of the ocean. I can push the waves, I can splash around in the water all I want, and then if you just walk towards me, softer, softer, and just keep your mind on that point of engagement, there you go, then I can't I try to neutralize it and push it, but anytime I try to push in an effective way, I end up off camera. So if you go this way, so from here you engage the ground, you make me engage the earth, you force me. The only option I have is to engage you in the strongest possible structure that you have, and in a way that compromises my structure, so that it's not that you're overpowering me, it's that you're making it impossible for me to issue power. You're not using a lot of force, you're making it impossible for me to make you use force. And it's just a matter of becoming softer and softer and softer, and then I just end up getting chased across the room by this, infinitely superior structure. So it's not about force, and that's one of the reasons why, of course, it looks fake when it's done right, because if you push with that sort of distal efferent pressure, and then you just use your mind to move to that centripetal engagement, then I automatically feel myself floating. And you haven't done anything, but the internal dynamics, it's all Newtonian mechanics. It's very, very simple physics, really. But the complexities of the internal relationship between thought, emotion, and posture is what makes it so elusive for people. So people can't quite find what it is that they're doing, because you're not doing.
Right.
It's an awareness. If you can get your mind to feel that relationship between this point of contact and the center of the earth, then all you do is harmonize yourself with that center of the earth. You become one with the universe. And my own effort pushes me away. And even if I don't think I'm applying pressure, I am. And if you improve that alignment, just with your mind, there, a little more refined, there you go, there. So these vectors combine in a really subtle way to make it impossible for me to resist you. It's like those muscle testing demonstrations we did, right? Where I push down like this and you resist, and you're really strong, but if I do this, you're really weak. And the person resisting can't tell the difference because they have all these efferent neurons interfering with their ability to feel what's happening. But it's really just Newtonian mechanics. And as far as it can be used as a form of divination, well, that depends on the insight of the operator. It's this simple horizontal circle. The first Tuishou exercise people learn is always done incorrectly, because people think, oh, it's simple, it's the first thing we learn. In fact, it is the most pivotal and, to pardon the pun, the most crucial exercise, because everything else is based on this. All of the other things are just ways of maintaining this skill. But this skill is something that people do where they'll push in circles and they'll go in all these different directions, but they're not feeling that alignment, that connection. Now that you've got that connection, it's been 2 years, it's been lots of janzhuang and lots of push hands, now we can start doing basics. Now that we've done all the advanced stuff.
Right, right.
And this is the thing that frustrates people with martial arts in general, is that you get to 3rd or 4th degree black belt in karate and you realize, oh, I should really work on my stances more. I should work on my basics more. Now that I understand what is going on, then we have to do this. And it's the same with judo. It's the same with MMA. It's the same with whatever sport or discipline you're in. Same with piano. You learn all the scales, you learn all this stuff, and then you realize, oh, voicings. There are 100 ways to play a note. And it's very rarely that students get to the point where they actually go, aha, and they're right. Lots of people go, aha, I get it. And then a few months later they go, oh, I don't get it. And then a few months later, aha, I get it. There. Boom. That's it. So then when we start to do all of the other wrist spiraling and rolling hand methods and all of the other stuff, this principle will be crucial. So there. So this is straight at your nose, there. And that was no force.
I know. And before, if you did that, I would have done some big...
That's right.
Something or other.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And now you're finding that it's not about moving. It's about where your mind is, where your awareness is. You move your mind, I bounce away. And you haven't done anything physically that you can point to,
Right.
All you've done is acknowledge the state of the universe, and the universe conforms to accommodate you. There. So you're doing nothing. You're just letting your mind flow. That's it. And here, I'm just bouncing off of your feet whenever I try to find you. And there's no effort, there's no force, there's no increased tension, there's no pressure per square inch. It's just smooth. Boom. That's it. And that, when you come forward, this looks like what you're doing, but when you come forward, because you're maintaining that engagement, what happens then is that when you come here, there's secondary engagement here, and here, and here. And that's what moves me, because it's connected to the ground too. So when you walk forward, I'm thinking about your hands, and yet it's the body that pushes me.
Right, because this is being tight.
Right, and I don't even feel it because I'm so busy worried about this. Right. And I have all these efferent neurons going out to fight against here, and I'm not able to pick up that, that afferent awareness, that centripetal connection, that, natural. See here, boom, like that. So this is, and this is where it looks like it's got to be fake, right?
Right.
But when I punch, I'm feeling my fist hit your nose. That's the first thing I do, and then that happens, because now and then you start messing with intent. So there you go. That's better. Now there you go, that's better. Yeah. So the problem we have, of course, is that we often do 1 beat or 2 beat training. So I attack and you counter and then we freeze.
Yeah.
And the key for you then, when we do that, I will stop at a certain point when you block, and the key for you is to not stop.
Right.
That way you will maintain that fluidity, and that's it. So when I think I'm going to try to hold on to something, there's nothing to hold on to.
Right.
And that's what happens usually. It's block, 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 and then people freeze up. And that's where good grapplers have a huge advantage over strikers, because the striker goes in and stops, and the grappler goes, oh, keep going. Right. And they flow into the next range because they're not attached to the striking range.
So, yeah, it's just too beautiful. So when you're doing this, I'm almost at the place where I'm not seeing you as a striking force, but as energy.
That's right. Yeah, and that's where.
So that means I don't have to wait for you to attack me.
Right. Offense and defense are the same thing. All you do, defending is not a thing. Balance is a thing. What you're trying to defend is your balance, but balance is the way you defend. So it's not like you suddenly turn on defending so that you can become balanced. You must be balanced already, and if you're already balanced, then that is your defense.
So that's what we were talking about many times.
See, that was a really fast punch. It just never got to happen. That's all right. No, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
See, you relaxed. You responded. As soon as your finger hit my eye, you relaxed your finger.
Okay.
Otherwise, it would have gone in.
Okay, I just stopped.
I want to do a really fast one here. Okay. So I'm gonna go as fast and without warning as possible.
Okay.
That was good. So the balance is already there. You don't wait for me to attack before you try to seek balance. You find the balance already, right? You're always seeking balance. You're always defending. You're always attacking. And you'll go through a phase when you're always stop hitting. You're always doing stop hit. So you can't walk down the street without getting into a fight. But if you can maintain that balance, then you only respond when the attack is real.
Right.
You're not looking for the attack.
Right.
And a lot of people get to that state where our friend, got to a point where he couldn't walk down the street without getting into a fight because he was playing whack-a-mole with every bit of violence that could ever happen. So people would walk in and go, this guy's fighting us right now. So that's it. We say, when my opponent doesn't move, I don't move. When my opponent moves, I move first. But don't move first before the opponent moves. Sometimes people qualify it and they'll say, if my opponent moves, I arrive first. But you've already arrived. When the opponent moves, you have already moved. But if the opponent doesn't move, there's no need to move. So you don't.
So what we've talked about a lot of times is, you have to be there you can't just suddenly say, oh, now I'll get relaxed and get grounded. Like you have to always be swimming.
Right. You can't become calm in the middle of a fight if you can't be calm when you're not in a fight.
Right.
So you must practice seeking and refining that calm and that balance and that relationship and centering yourself and neutralizing your own forces, neutralizing your own strength, right. Which is what the Tai Chi and the forms are. You practice neutralizing yourself, neutralizing your mind, your emotions, neutralizing the forces and the resistance and the tension in your own body. And once you can do that, then you can start neutralizing the tension and the resistance in the other person.
Because when I'm really relaxed, then I feel your tensions and I feel your currents, the currents inside you.
Right.
So that if you do this and you relax, I can feel where your currents are. Mm-hmm. But if I'm tight, then I don't feel anything.
That's that efferent versus afferent neurons, right? You're sending signals out to your body, so you can't receive anything.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're not doing that and you're just receiving,
right.
And that's punging. Punging is about receiving and connecting it to the ground. So if you have that boing power,
and having the kind of neurological confidence not to be, because if I don't get close enough, I can't do anything. So the closer, it's like that story about the bull. Like, the bull is fighting the bull. The safest place is right beside the bull. There's nothing safer than that. If you have the nerve to beat it, the bull turns, you turn.
Exactly,
Nothing will happen. But you have to be that close. If you're this far away, then you're in danger. But like right here is not danger.
There you go.
Right
there. But here, if you're tense, there's danger everywhere. I can move you around.
For sure.
But if you're in the same position and you make that afferent connection, there you go. Now I push you and I move myself.
Yeah.
And you have changed nothing except your mind.
Yeah.
So now in your mind, you're in a safe place. But if you're out there, you're like
that is not safe.
Yeah. You're like some autocratic dictator who gets really upset when somebody posts something on Twitter.
Didn't want to happen.
Yeah.
So
that happens.
Yeah. So more zazen.
More zazen.
More zazen. That's the answer to everything.
Yeah.
More zazen. Big problem for Zen students.
Big problem for Zen students. You used to be tense everywhere. Yeah. And now that you've programmed yourself to deal with the flinch response, we talk about channeling the flinch response. So the first movement of the form channels that flinch response. Right. So you don't do this, you do this. Right. The main reason for doing that is not just so that you give yourself a tactical advantage, but so that you don't get attached to that flinch. Because the flinch has two parts. There's the initial reaction, and then there's the tension that hangs on afterwards. So if you've been traumatized, then when something happens, you tense up, you flinch, and then you stay tense afterwards. But if you are trained, then you tense and you react and you relax immediately afterwards.
Right.
So you have to overcome that trauma, and that's part of what push hands does.
Right.
That's why I've got students who are in the military, and when they come back from deployment, one of the first things they want to do is can I come push? I want to come and push with you, because one of the things that this does is it takes that flinch and trains that letting go, trains that relaxation again, so that they're not going like that. They're going, and being able to, it helps to condition that discernment. It helps to teach people what is really lacking right now in society in general is the ability to tell when you're fighting and when you're not, when the thing is a threat and when it isn't. So you'll find that when you watch a boxing match, it's mostly missing. And when we're doing Tuishou, I'm mostly missing. I'm almost never on your center. If you're neutralizing, almost nothing that I do is a threat to you. And the more centered and balanced you can become, the less threat there is. When people are insecure, they become like a big wall, and they react on Twitter to anything anybody says. And they rant against a big, beautiful wall. Right. So the need for walls is ineffective. Right? You create an emotional or physical or a wall of tension, and it becomes counterproductive. You end up doing that, and it was the joke, finish the wall, and You turn around and all the Mexicans have come in through Canada. So, but identifying what is actually a threat and what isn't. If you just lump everything together and say, oh, that's a threat. Oh, there's a fist. The guy's punching me. Well, maybe he's holding something to give you. Maybe the threat isn't real. So, and most of the time in a fight, we're fighting against things that are not threats. We're tense because we flinched, and now we're holding ourselves, protecting ourselves. We think we're protecting ourselves, but we end up fighting against a whole bunch of things that are not actually a danger, unless we fight against them, and then we get taken off balance by them. Right. So learning how to identify precisely what is the threat. That's why countries have intelligence agencies. That's why countries have think tanks and people who analyze and think deeply about things. Because if you don't, then you end up making the wrong decision and fighting against the wrong thing. And individuals do it every moment of our lives. We're always tensing against things that happened 30 years ago to us or to our ancestors, where we're reacting through our RNA to impulses that were, somebody 300 years ago was scared by a snake and now we're afraid of snakes. And snakes are good. The crops wouldn't grow without snakes.
Figure skaters. They jump up and they fall, and you'd think they would just lie down on the ice and cry. You think they would just roll themselves up flat on the ice and sob until someone dragged them out by their skates, right? But they don't. They land and they get up like nothing happened. So how amazing is that?
That's amazing, and a lot of that, of course, is conditioning.
Yeah.
It's why we do scenario training in martial arts. You have to imagine what would happen in this situation, what would happen in this situation. Police have to do this so that they get to a situation and they say, is this a threat or isn't it a threat? And if you don't do that training, then you end up seeing a threat where there isn't one. And making the wrong association. You associate a culture or a color with a particular experience you've had in the past, and you think, oh, there's this again. But it's not this, it's a completely different thing.
Apparently German Shepherds are the best at that.
Really?
Yep. German Shepherds are, their skill, I saw this program about guard dogs. And the thing about German Shepherds that makes them so unique and why they're used so often in police training is they have a sense of what's a real threat and what isn't.
Nice.
Whereas other dogs will just, get snarly and wild. Not the German Shepherd. The Belgian Shepherd.
Which is really the same kind of...
No.
No?
The Belgian Shepherd, they said, is like the ultimate guard dog, but it's only used by special forces or that unless you are a superb trainer and have a lot of time, don't get this dog because this dog is a loaded gun.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. It's a new phase in your training, and it's
Absolutely.
really like every week. But
Very exciting.
now we can start working on basics.
Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Very good.
As always.
More practice.
Always.
More zazen.